بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم افتح علينا بحكمتك وانشر علينا برحمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله في كل لمحة ونفس عدد ما وسعه علم الله يا عليم علمنا من علمك ما ترضى به عنا ولا تؤاخذنا بما تعلمه منا يا حليم خلقنا بخلق الحلم وحققنا بحقائق العلم سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Today we'll try to finish the first three verses and then tomorrow we can probably take maybe three more verses بإذن ta'ala. So he says here in the Arabic text قال محمد هو ابن جعفر لقب كتان عليه قد جرى حمدا لمن أوجدنا من العدم وخصنا بخير من له القدم صلى عليه ربنا وسلم وآله وكل من له انتمى. So he says, Muhammad said, the son of Ja'far, widely known by a name from selling linen, out of praise for God, this being his intention and his motivation, out of praise for God who gave us existence from non-existence. This is the first principle of faith that he wants to give to you, that you know this and you believe this and you contemplate this and make this the beginning of your recollection of your Creator and yourself. And gave a special distinction, this being the second article of faith, that he gave a special distinction through our Prophet, the best of those having preeminence. May our Lord extol him, elevate his status higher and higher. He is the perfect being. He is the best of creation. That is a matter of consensus. But perfection is infinite, so it goes higher and higher and higher unto infinity. May our Lord extol him and grant him special grace and those who follow him in belief. The word al here is a word in Arabic which is used for great people who have large followings. So you have Alu Ya'qub, you have the house of Jacob, you have also Alu Fir'aun, you have the house of Pharaoh or the people of Pharaoh. And when we use the word Al, Muhammad, in the context of zakah, then it refers to his kin, those who are not allowed to take zakat. And when we refer to it in the context of praise, then it refers to his upright followers. And when we refer to that word here in the context of a dua, then it refers to all the believers who follow him, whether they are upright or not. So it is a very general word. And so let's talk now about the creation from nothing. And this is a very important topic. Here, he is establishing the temporality of the world. And this is a matter of consensus among us and among also the ancient Jews and the Christians and undoubtedly the believing prophetic communities before, that this world is temporal. In English, when we say that something is temporal, we mean that it exists in time. And we could say that if it exists in time, it also exists in space. And the temporality is one of the fundamental concepts of our belief. In Arabic, the word that we use for temporality is huduth. Huduth. And something which is temporal, we say, is hadith. And we define huduth as al-wujudu ba'd al-adam. Temporality is existence after non-existence. This is our definition of it. So in our conception of temporality, temporality is an opposite. It belongs to the categories of opposites. And the opposite of temporality is what we call qidam. Qidam. The adjective for which is qadim. And here the word qadim doesn't mean ancient. It means pre-existent. And one of the names of Allah is Al-Qadim. It's a name of Allah attested in hadith, not in the Quran. But Al-Qadim here does not mean ancient. It means he whose existence is before, يَتَقَدَّمُ عَلَى everything else. So here you have two opposites. You have pre-existence, which is to exist without beginning. And you have then temporality or huduth, which is to exist after a beginning. To exist after not having existed. And in Islamic theology, we rely upon three sources of discursive knowledge. And I mean by discursive knowledge that these are sources of knowledge that you and I share in common. So they have an element of objectivity, that we can discuss them objectively and we ought to be able to come to some kind of agreement. They're not the only sources of knowledge. In your heart, you also have other windows to reality. Such as, for example, the power of imagination, or such as, for example, the power to understand image. And that's regarded to be a very high power. But we don't use that in theology, because the ability that you may have in that regard may be very great, and other people may not share that. So we have three sources of discursive knowledge. And those are revelation, that we are people who believe in the Prophet ﷺ, and we accept the Quran as the Word of God and as authoritative. And we have also the same posture regarding the words of our blessed Prophet. So sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whatever he said, it was the truth. And we simply have to know whether he said it and whether it has been authentically transmitted to us. But all of that is revelation. The Quran is one type of revelation, and the hadith of the blessed Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is another type of revelation. For us, that is a major source of knowledge. And then we have pure reason, which we may also call intellect. Al-aql. Al-aql. And pure reason is extremely important in Islamic law and in Islamic theology. Because, first of all, moral responsibility, taklif, it only comes with reason. If you don't have reason, then you're not capable of taklif. You're not capable of moral and legal responsibility. But pure reason is the basis upon which we know that this prophet is speaking the truth. And we know that what the Quran is teaching us is consistent and coherent and truthful. So reason is very, very important. And our tradition is very much a rational tradition. And it's a rational tradition cultivated in such a way that it flourished in profound science. The other source of knowledge is empirical, meaning by that experience. And we usually refer to that like scientific knowledge, experiential knowledge. We usually refer to that as al-'ada. Al-'ada means custom, but what we mean by that is customary experience. So we don't usually refer to experience in the absolute like we do in English. And this is an indication of the greater precision of the way that we speak about reality. Because experience that is the basis of material science has got to repeat itself. And therefore, when it does repeat itself, when the same thing occurs over and over again, we call it a custom. And here there's also an indication that in the realm of experience, there are things that happen that are extraordinary and that don't repeat themselves. And in fact, many of us in our own lives have had experiences like that. But especially in the lives of the prophets and of the messengers, you have miracles. And the miracles are experience. They belong, to the material world, and there's nothing impossible about them whatsoever. This is something that we will elaborate on more as we go further. But they are not customary experience. They are breaks in the continuity of customary experience, which Allah does as He wills. He can do that. So again, we use a vocabulary, which is properly tailored to fit the cognitive frames that we believe are sound and accurate and enable us to look at the world in the right way. So we have three sources of discursive knowledge. We have revelation, and we have pure reason or intellect, and we have customary experience. These are very important. And one of the things that we can say about Western civilization, perhaps over the last 200 years, is the fact that it has generally reduced the sources of discursive knowledge to one and one alone, which is empirical reason, that we will acknowledge as valid whatever we see, hear, touch, taste, and smell repeatedly. And this is a great problem because of the fact that values and truths, the meanings of things, are not perceived by the senses. The senses simply report to us what is here. We can tell the shapes of things, we can tell the colors of things, we can generalize about them. We can say this pillar is just like that one, this one's like that one. We have how many pillars in this room? But on the basis of sense experience alone, we can't really say this is beautiful. We can't even really say that this is useful. And for that reason, postmodernism in the 20th century and into the 21st century, which is a radical innovation in Western thought, is in some ways very honest, in that if truly you only believe in empirical thought, then you can't make value judgments. You can't tell me that one thing is beautiful and another is ugly. You can't tell me about truth and falsehood. And that is accurate, because these statements about, like, this world is beautiful, this world is miraculous, this world has meaning, which it does. It's manifest in everything. But that comes from the heart. And the heart for us is also the intellect. The intellect and the heart for us are the same thing. They work in different ways. But these are values that we get which are not directly related to the perception of colors and sounds and tastes and smells and generalizations about them. One of the things that we'll talk about today, for example, the creation from nothing, is some of the findings of astrophysics and of modern physics, which belong to the realm of customary experience. So we have, as we mentioned this morning, the expansion theory of the universe, which we usually refer to as Big Bang. And Big Bang is a very interesting theory, because one of the things that it does show is that this world has a beginning. It is not eternal. And it takes us to a beginning point, which is essentially, in the eyes of many people, creation from nothing. That there was an infinite point with no size. No size. And all of creation comes out of that. Okay, and this is based on astronomical observations, especially the work of Hubble, of the Doppler effect, and the work of Hubble, where they showed that the universe is expanding by the Doppler effect. The Doppler effect shows that if an object in space is approaching you, it has, I think they called it a blue stratum or something like that, and if it's going away, it has red. And they found out that everything out there in all directions is going away. But the further you go, the faster it's going. And that there is a connection between that. It's like if it's twice as far away, it's going twice as fast. So this shows that there is a beginning point. And how you calculate that in terms of years or measurements is a very difficult thing, because you have to make a lot of assumptions. But still, there is a belief there that there is a beginning. And many scientists believe that this is creatio ex nihilo. It is creation from nothing. But then you have others, like some famous scientists, that will say that, metaphysics has no place here. In other words, we don't want any metaphysical intrusions in the study of physics. And this is an example of the tyranny of the empirical mentality. In other words, it is essentially a belief that, look, there is nothing but what can be measured, what can be tasted and touched and smelled and perceived by the senses, and we will not allow you to speak about anything else. And this is where we differ. That, we have a right and an obligation to use the mind. And we do not believe in curtailing pure reason. And this is what has happened in the West, especially from the days of Kant, the great philosopher. And in the wake of Kant, the use of pure reason is going to be put under the utilization of empirical knowledge. So you can tell me what is necessary by reason or possible or impossible, if I can actually show it to be that way in an experiment or something like that. So we use pure reason as a servant in material science. Pure reason, for example, is mathematics. all mathematical truth is essentially pure reason. It is quantifiable, and it doesn't need to have a laboratory. You know that a certain number is odd or even, or that the calculation of those numbers leads to a particular result, and that numbers relate to each other in different ways. And this is something that is known as immediate knowledge. It doesn't have to be proved in a laboratory. And geometry is like that too. And if we talk about Euclidean geometry in a world like this world that we have here, then the Euclidean triangle is going to always have the sum of its angles 180 degrees. You can make the triangle as many different shapes as you want. You can make it obtuse, you can make it acute, you can make it square, whatever you want, but always the combinations of the angles of a Euclidean triangle are going to be 180 degrees. So this is also pure reason. Modern computer science, is also based on, binary mathematics, which is also reason, pure reason. So in the West, we will use reason for things like that. We will use it for mathematical calculations. We will use it in different types of geometry, Euclidean and non-Euclidean, but we will not allow it to fly. And this is really what reason is for. It is there to make sense of the world that we see around us. And one of the things that pure reason needs in order to fly is to find opposites. And in Arabic, we define the opposites. We call an opposite in Arabic as a naqid. Naqid. And we say an-naqidani la yajtami'ani wa la yartafi'an. The two opposites never conjoin, and they are never mutually separated. And we mean by that when we have two opposites, such as, for example, existence and non-existence, or we have pre-existence and temporality, according to our definition of temporality, then anything that we speak of it cannot have both of those. They don't conjoin. So it cannot be both temporal and pre-existent. They're exclusive. But it cannot have some third quality other than them where they're both separated. So it's got to have one. It's either existent or non-existent. It is either pre-existent, having no beginning, or it has a beginning. And when we find opposites like that, then the human mind, when it knows how to fly, it can produce incredible insights. This is one of the reasons why Newton, who was a Unitarian believer in God, and who rejected the Trinity, and he spent as much time in theology as he did in physics. He studied the Bible very carefully. And Newton, he perceived the laws of thermodynamics. Thermodynamics is the fact that in the physical world as we see it, heat always goes to cold. There's always this transfer of energy. And it's a one-way street. It doesn't go the other way. Newton did not formulate the laws of thermodynamics. That was done in the 19th century. But Newton understood that principle, and that was one of his proofs of the existence of God, that this world then has to have a beginning, because it has this one-way street where energy is always going from hot to cold, and it's reaching equilibrium and balance, or entropy. Newton understood that, and he used that as a proof of God. And many people in his time did. He's before Kant. But this is very important for us, that we use pure reason, and we are not ashamed to do that. And we believe in metaphysics, And we believe in the human capacity for metaphysical insight. And in fact, to study physics, to study the natural world, and not to be able to use the cognitive powers of the human mind, this is absurd. And for that reason, a lot of the propositions of modern science, they just, if we only can use our reason, it's like this has got to be modified. This has got to be put in a different context. So we believe that the world is created from nothing. In other words, that it is temporal. And in our theology, there are two basic rational propositions based on revelation and based on experience, which are that, first of all, the world is temporal, that the world exists after not having existed. It does not have an infinite existence in the past. It has a beginning. And in our belief, it was created from nothing. Based on revelation, based on pure reason, and based also on experience. And then we believe that this world that is temporal also has iftiqar, that it also has contingency, or it has dependence. In other words, it cannot account for itself. It points to a creator who made it. And there's no way to explain this world unless we posit the existence of that creator who is utterly different from the world itself. And here in theology, we also talk about the world and we define the world. And our word for the world, and here we mean the universe also, is the word alam. Alam. Allah is Rabbul Alameen. He is the Lord of all the worlds. Okay, and the word alam is a very beautiful word. By the word world, alam, we mean everything other than God. This is our definition of the world. We don't mean the earth or the mountains or the seas, but we mean everything other than God. This is the world. This is the world. So we mean by that the Milky Way. We mean by that the angels. We mean by that the garden and the fire. We mean by that the things we can see and the things we cannot see. But everything that we cannot see that is created. Okay, this is our definition of the word world. And the word world is a really beautiful word in Arabic. The Arabic language is an ancient tongue. And in the Semitic family, it belongs to the Afro-Asian family, which is one of the great families of languages. It used to be called Semitic-Hamitic. Now they usually call it Afro-Asian. It's one of the great families of Africa and of Asia. And it's a huge family. It has in it Pharaonic Egyptian, has in it Berber, has in it Hausa, has in it Ethiopic, the language of Najashi, the king of Ethiopia. It has in it Tigray, Tigrinya. It has in it Amharic. It's got Aramaic, Hebrew, Syriac, Babylonian, Thamudic, which is a language of Thamud. And Thamud truly existed. And they wrote all over the Arabian desert. I could show you, I've got it on my computer because I like things like that. I could show you the whole Thamudic alphabet. It's an amazing thing, because their alphabet is the alphabet from which the Latin and the Greek and the Ethiopic alphabets almost certainly come. The problem here is dating. Europeans know that, but they insist on dating Thamudic around 600 BC, a little bit after 600 BC. Whereas if you go to the Arabian desert and you see Thamudic, it's written on rocks with rock paintings, which if they existed anywhere else in the world, like the Sahara Desert, they would be dated in the Neolithic, 7000 BC. But we can't do that. That would turn the tables upside down. That would be Thamudic is what Arnold Toynbee great historian, called archaeological time bombs. Because if you can just show that Thamudic is as old as, let's say, 1200 BC, you've changed everything. Everything goes up in smoke that they did. And then you've got to rethink the whole history of the world. This is really interesting. And Thamudic is an ancient Semitic tongue. An ancient Semitic tongue written all over the Arabian Peninsula. And they call themselves Thamud. They refer to them that way. But Arabic is as ancient as Thamudic. And how do we know that? We know that by comparative linguistic study. We do the same thing with European languages. We have the Indo-European family. In Africa, you have also the Nile, you have the Niger-Congo family, which is a huge family. It's got in it Bantu and Swahili and Zulu, Mandinka, Wolof, Jola, Yoruba, all these great tongues. They're beautiful languages, they really are. And they're a huge family. Those are the two big families of Africa. But when we study these languages, we do it comparatively. So when we take together all of the family of the Afro-Asian tongues, ancient Babylonian, Assyrian, Hebrew, Syriac, Aramaic, ancient Pharaonic, which is more close to Arabic and Hebrew than it is to Berber. Pharaoh, when he talked about a crocodile, he called it Mesah. Mesah, we call it Timsah, because it surveys the land from the water. And it has lots of words like that that are very much like Arabic. When we do that, then we see that the ancient tongue of this family, it had tenween. Or it used the same thing with meme. So they would say babun, baban, babin, tenween. Or they might say babum, babam, babim. And they will have i'rab, which is usually u, a, i. Ancient Babylonian has that. Babu, baba, babi. And it will have the dual, the muthanna. So you have rajulun, rajulani, rijal. It will have broken plurals. And it will have also sound masculine plural, sound feminine plural. It will have distinction between sad and dad. It will have distinction between ayn and ghayn. It will have distinction between tha and sa, between dhal and dal. All these Arabic has. So this puts Arabic in the most ancient category of this incredible family. Hebrew and Aramaic and many other languages, they are Middle Semitic. They're not as old as Arabic. And that's because they lost most of these things we just talked about. They don't have that anywhere. Maryam is one of the few words in Hebrew, Maryam, that still has the dual. It's Maryan, Maryani. In Arabic it would be that, and it's actually Mar'an. It's two men. وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنثَى. Because Mary is better than many men. This woman is not like a man. She's not even two men are not equal to her. So Maryam is a powerful name. How many Maryams do you know? Have you ever known a Maryam who was weak? They're usually strong. They can even be difficult. Their name affects them. But in Arabic is an ancient tongue. And the ancient tongues always are extremely rich. Which is another thing which is very interesting, isn't it? Because if human beings evolved from some pitiful beginning as parasites living in caves, vegetating and living off of whatever they can find, and then they learn how to talk, and they gradually learn how to stand up a little bit better, and so forth. Then why are their languages so rich? The Arabic language as it was spoken by Quraysh and by the great Arab tribes when the blessed prophet was born. That language, we can say, by comparative Afro-Asian linguistics, was spoken at least that way for the last 10,000 years. It was written very late. It was written many different ways, by the way. Arabs used different scripts, but writing a language has almost nothing to do with preserving its genuine authenticity and its continuity. Writing doesn't do that. In fact, writing can often lead to the opposite, which is the loss of language. But Arabic was preserved by culture and environment. These are what preserve languages. When a culture has continuity, then the language will stay stable. And especially if that language exists in an environment where, where there are no radical changes, then the language will also stay strong. And this is why the great gift of God to the Arabs and to us and to the Muslims is the Arabian Peninsula. The Arabian Peninsula. Think about the Arabian Peninsula. It's as big as India. It's as big enough to be a subcontinent. And it's huge. And then it's got on the western coast the Red Sea. The Red Sea is very deep, and the Red Sea is a coral sea. يَخْرُجُ مِنْهُمَا اللُّؤْلُؤُ وَالْمَرْجَانُ, right? And, it's a coral sea. No harbor on the whole Red Sea, which is very long. When Martin Lynx, may God have mercy on him, took his first pilgrimage in 1948, and there's now a beautiful documentary about that. It took him 7 days to go by boat from Egypt, to Jeddah. It's a long sea, no natural ports. Even Jeddah was not a natural port. It had to be made into a port. All of these had coral. And in order to come into the port, you had to be guided into it by special boats that would take you through the coral. And if you don't get that, your ship will sink. In fact, in Martin Lynx's film, the documentary that shows his trip, you'll see a sunken ship off of Jeddah because it hit the coral. So Allah protected the Red Sea by coral. No natural port. Nothing like New York, nothing like San Francisco, nothing like Manila. Manila is one of the greatest natural ports in the world. No natural port. Amazing. And then you have southern Arabia, which has a few ports that let the Arabs contact Africa and India. And then you have the eastern coast, which is the Gulf, which is very shallow. Just as the Red Sea is extremely deep, the Gulf is extremely shallow and hot. Very good for pearls, al-lu'lu wal-marjan. And the boats there, no natural ports. The boats also have to be small boats, like what we call in English the dhow, that you can push off the sand and put back on the sand. In the whole of Arabia, no river, no Nile, no Euphrates, no Tigris. So this meant that Arabia, which has in it mountains, has in it water, you can live in Arabia very nicely if you have the good land. You have trees in the mountains and shaded areas, so it can support a big population. But then it has this difficult desert. The Hijaz, which is the holy part of the peninsula. The Hijaz is covered with volcanic rock. So that it's Hajjaz, it's a barrier. There's no way you could travel there without a guide. This is all the plan of Allah. And then Arabia is placed where? In the middle of the world. Perfectly placed between Africa and Asia and Europe, so that when the light would come, out of the wilderness of Faran, which is Mecca, then it would spread to all the world. Go to Africa, go to Asia, and go to Europe. But one of the things that it would have also is the most perfect tongue known to human beings, the Arabic tongue, which is an ancient, pure Semitic tongue. Babylonian looks like a dialect compared to Arabic. Hebrew looks like a very simple dialect compared to Arabic. Arabic is profound. This is really important because especially today in some of the propaganda that is being put out, people, Christians are saying that Arabic is, it's not as old as Hebrew. Hebrew is much older. This is all nonsense. But again, Arabic was an extremely expressive language in which the letters have meaning. And the combinations of letters have meanings because of the meanings of the letters. This is incredible. And if you take a dictionary like Lisan al-Arab, which is this huge dictionary that only deals with the Arabic of the days of the Prophet ﷺ and before that and the early period, it's like the words are so rich. They're so profound. So who were the people who spoke that language? What were they like? Because this human mind only works by the tongue. I cannot make my mind work, nor can you, unless we can find words to express this treasure that we find in our heart. If you have good language, then we can expect you to think well. If you are oppressed and denied language, you will not be able to think well. In the history of the oppression of peoples, usually their oppressors deny them language, keep their language stupid and simple, so they can't talk about anything that's complex. That's why in the process of revolution, you've got to raise the language. You've got to begin to talk. You've got to begin to speak. You've got to begin to express. You've got to be precise. Then you become revolutionary. It's very, very important. There is a direct connection between the quality of language and the quality of human thought. That's why for us, as Muslims, we are really concerned about speaking good English. We've got to speak the best English, or French, or German, or Spanish, Castilian, or whatever it may be, and speaking the best Arabic, getting Arabic right, learning it well. These are our languages, always Arabic and our native tongue, whatever it may be. But in Arabic, the word for world is alam, and this means a great sign. So the world is an alama. The world is a sign of God. It's an alam. It's a banner that is raised high. And that's because everything in the world, all of its trees, all of its mountains, all of its fishes, everything that it has, these are manifest signs of the existence of the Creator. As Abu Madyan al-Ghawth says, may Allah be pleased with him, مَا لَا وُجُودَ لِذَاتِهِ مِنْ ذَاتِهِ فَوُجُودُهُ لَوْلَاهُ عَيْنُ الْمُحَالِ مَا لَا وُجُودَ لِذَاتِهِ مِنْ ذَاتِهِ فَوُجُودُهُ لَوْلَاهُ لَوْلَا اللَّهِ عَيْنُ الْمُحَالِ. That which exists but has no existence, that comes from its own essence, its existence without God is the very essence of impossibility. Cannot be. That's intellect. That's the heart. But this is why the world around us is a manifest sign. And in speaking about all of this, we're always rubbing shoulders with what Sidi Walid talked about in his first speech, and that is ujmatul qulub. That is the illiteracy of the hearts today. That really the modern human being who is so highly developed, so intelligent, so capable of making cars and airplanes and computers and internets and all iPhones, all of these things, is at the same time one of the most ignorant examples of humanity the world has ever witnessed. who does not know how to think about himself or herself or about the world around them, and for whom the existence of God is one of the most problematic of all questions. And that's not what it is. That's not what it should be. It's one of the most manifest of all the manifestations of the unseen in the creation. So we believe that God created the world from nothing. This is what he tells us in the Revelation. That God bada al-khalq. He is the one who originated creation. He is al-badi', yani he is al-awwal, al-akhir, and so forth. And then also, in terms of the pure intellect, the great sign of the temporality of the world is change. That which changes is temporal. And this is a law. We could call that a law. It is a rule because it is based on necessity. And this is also very important because when we talk about natural laws, we're abusing language. What are natural laws? Natural laws of gravity? Natural laws of what? These are not laws, these are generalizations. And we would call them the customs of God. And we expect things to work according to these customs. But they are not laws that nature has dictated. They are psychological habits. They are perceptual habits that we develop by seeing the repetition of customary experience. But they are not laws in the sense that they are not based on intellectual necessity or impossibility or possibility. And again, it's very important for us to get our language. You don't want to work in other people's cognitive frames. You won't be able to get out of them. One of the biggest traps of all traps is to set cognitive frames. Cognitive frames are these conceptions that we have in our mind that determine the way we think. And if you don't have the right cognitive frames, then the facts will bounce off. This is the nature of the ujma of the qulub today, of the illiteracy of the hearts. Here is the world with a splendid creation around you, and yet we can't see that. And this is because we don't have the cognitive frames. We don't even know how to think about that. We don't know about the nature of existence. So change is the great proof. And here, our scholars point out that all the things that we see in this world, like the cup in my hand, we call it a cup. It has an essence. It has a jawhar. This is a cup. And we can even talk about it tomorrow. It will probably still be here. Okay, but this cup has secondary attributes. Okay, that right now it's in my right hand, now it's in my left hand. Its attributes has changed. Now it's upside down, and I spilled some water. And now it's back right side up, and I won't do that again because we might get kicked out of here, right? And now it's good, now it's bent. If I did it stronger, I could maybe even tear it, but I won't do that. It's a nice cup. Okay, so these attributes that the cup has, we can call them accidents. Do you know what the word accident means here? It's using its original Latin meaning, which means adcedent, accident. It means things that come to it. It doesn't talk about, we're not talking about car accidents or anything like that. But the attributes that this has, we call them in Arabic a'rad. And we can translate that in English, philosophical English, as accidents. And maybe we can use among ourselves language which is easier, like secondary attributes. In other words, they're attributes that come and go. The cup now is white and it has these little stars on it. And, we could get a paintbrush and paint it black or red or yellow. The thing is that all the accidents of this cup, it's in space, it's in time, it's here in my hand, now it's in the other hand. These are necessary for the cup. Because this cup cannot exist in time and place without accidents. It cannot exist without certain attributes. It's got to have up, down, right, left, front, back. It's got to be close to me or far from me. It's now in my hand, touching me. I'm touching it. Now it's not. Okay? It's got to have certain attributes. And it cannot exist conceptually or existentially without them. So, has this cup existed from before creation? Is this the only cup that's not created in the world? Is it pre-existent? In pure reason, that is impossible. This is again why pure reason is important, because for pure reason, there is a direct connection in intellect between this cup and between its changing attributes. All of those attributes begin in space and time. Therefore, the cup must also begin in space and time. There cannot be an infinite regress of finite attributions. If there were such an actual infinite, you wouldn't be able to cross it. You wouldn't be able to get to the present moment. So no matter how old this cup is, it could be a week old, it could be a year old, it cannot be infinitely old. And did I witness its beginning so that I can say on the basis of my testimony that yes, I saw this cup made in Turkey, it's a really nice Turkish cup? No. I just saw it for the first time a few minutes ago. But I don't need to see that, because I have something more powerful than eyes and ears and touch and taste and smell, which is pure intellect. And I know that as long as this changes, or it has the potential of change, it cannot be pre-existent. It must be hadith, mawjudun ba'd al-adam. It must exist after non-existence. And this is why Allah Azza wa Jal, He speaks continually of the alteration of the day and the night. You know, the fact that we are created in the wombs of our blessed mothers from nothing. And we grow, and we become little babies, and then we learn how to hear, and we get hands and fingers, and then we come out as children, and we can't even walk. And then we can walk, and then we can talk. And these changes are in the eyes of the intelligent human being, the human being who has intellect, and whose intellect has not been abused, and has not been reduced to nothing. The wings have not been clipped. This is a sign of the existence of God. This is a sign of His knowledge, His wisdom, His will, and His power. These are really important things. When I first went to my principal sheikh, Sheikh Muhammad Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, who was my principal sheikh for 19 years, one of the greatest human beings I've ever known in my life, a real wali of Allah, amazing human being. And I was brought to him by another wali. He was hidden, no way to find him. And when I was brought to him, one of the first things he had me do was the Aqidah, although he had me do another poem, Al-Kharid al-Bahiyya. And he said, you have to learn this and memorize it, you have to translate it, you have to make a commentary on it, you have to know this. And in it, when Ad-Dardir talks about the intellect, and he says that it has only three rulings, necessary, possible, and impossible, I actually went to the sheikh the next day and I said, is that really true? Intellect only has 3 categories and not 4, and he looked at me like, what? Like, I thought you people were the most intelligent people on the face of the earth. And you're asking me this question. I told him, like, to tell you the truth, we don't know this at all. This is one of the roots of kufr. Kufr has 8 roots. We might talk about those in another day. But one of the roots of kufr is not knowing the necessity of the necessary, the impossibility of the impossible, and the possibility of the possible, not knowing the intellect. And most Westerners today, they don't know it at all. It is like negated completely. And we have to bring that back to life. We have to teach ourselves and them how to think again. And this is why also some of our great scholars, like I believe Al-Bayjuri, I don't remember who it is, but he says that you got to train yourself to use pure reason so that you can think again, so that you can understand these things. So this is the proof. And I think it is time to finish now, right? Are we out of time? But also in experience today, we do have, the expansion theory of the universe. And this is one of the most important theories of astrophysics. And it shows that this world has a beginning. And this is an amazing theory. And then we have also the second law of thermodynamics, which modern physicists may disagree about certain things about it. But for a long time, the second law of thermodynamics, which is that hot goes to cold and balances. It's one of the most important laws of all physical laws. If we didn't have the second law of thermodynamics, we couldn't exist. All of a sudden, all the oxygen could be over here and all the nitrogen over here. Or you could get in your bathtub and part of the bathtub is boiling hot and the other part is freezing. It's the law of thermodynamics that balances it out so that the nitrogen and the oxygen are always together, we can breathe it, and so that the water in the tub will be basically, it will come to have a common temperature. But always it's a one-way street. So you don't see cold go back to heat unless there's some kind of another effect that's taking place. So, inshallah. Okay, so can you repeat the quote? I'll do that. Now this is Abu Madyan. Again, the Aqidah is really important for us, and may we get a good hold on it during these days. But Abu Madyan said, مَا لَا وُجُودَ لِذَاتِهِ مِنْ ذَاتِهِ مَا لَا وُجُودَ, that which has no existence. مَا لَا وُجُودَ لِذَاتِهِ, that which has no existence for its essence. مِنْ ذَاتِهِ, from its essence. Did I create myself? Did you create yourself? No. Did this create itself? Did this create itself? Impossible. Impossible. It is a sign of the world indicating a maker, who in this case is human. مَا لَا وُجُودَ لِذَاتِهِ مِنْ ذَاتِهِ فَوُجُودُهُ, then its existence, لَوْلَاهُ, were it not for God. عَيْنُ الْمُحَالِ is the very essence of impossibility. Cannot be. Everything finite points to the infinite. Everything finite points to the infinite. May Allah open our eyes to see that. This is what you believe, and your belief is true. But we want to make that really clear, and we want to be able to learn how to speak about that discursively in such a way that we can teach our brothers and sisters. We can take their hands. If the European people and the American peoples, meaning by that the Canadians, the Americans, the Mexicans, Argentinians, the Chileans, all these great people, the Caribbean peoples, if we can teach these people how to look and how to think, what kind of Muslims will they be? What kind of, and this is our job. We have got to live this deen, and we've got to take this deen to the people around us. And they live in a time of great ignorance. And some of them are very proud people, which is unfortunate because that blocks them. But many of them are not that way, as you know yourself. Many of them are very humble people. In fact, even in these scientific discussions, as Sheikh Hamza was telling me today, like you have Wolfgang Smith, who is one of the really powerful writers, who now is refuting a lot of the nonsense that is being written by Hawkins and others. And these are people that are good people. We need to benefit from them, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Do we have time for any questions, or are we out of time? Sorry? We're out of time. So I'm sorry about that. I want to give you time for questions, and I'll try to do that really hard. We still didn't finish the first 3 verses, but maybe we won't have to do that. I mean, the law of thermodynamics and of the Big Bang and so forth, we might be able to talk about that later. I think maybe we should move on. Would that be okay with you? So tomorrow, inshallah, we'll try to turn the page. And tomorrow we'll try to take verses 4, 5, and start 6. This in 6 is going to take some time. Okay, so inshallah we'll do that. It's a great honor to be here with you. May Allah open our hearts. Again, one of the reasons why these poems are so beautiful is because, as Ibn Ata'Allah says, كل كلام يبرز وعليه كسوة القلب الذي منه برز. That all words that come out of the heart, and the only words that count are the words that come out of the heart. You speak from your heart, I try to speak from mine. He speaks from his heart. Okay, the words of his heart affect your heart. When the words come out of, just talk, then they don't have that effect. They can even be harmful. But when you take the words of Muhammad ibn Ja'far al-Qattani, they come into your heart wearing the ornamentation of his blessed heart. And that transforms you. That's why also memorization is very important. Memorize the hadith of the Prophet. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. What heart is that? Take the words of Allah revealed to the Prophet. What effect does that have? Memorizing the words of great people, it transforms us. We put in our hearts the kiswa, the ornamentation, the drapery, like the drapery of the Kaaba, of these great human beings, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. May Allah transform us. And inshallah, may this be a wonderful time for you this month. I wish I could stay with you the whole month, but I've got to go back to Spain, which I'm not sad about doing, but I would like to be here. And inshallah, may Allah bless you and protect you, and maybe next year come to Spain. Any Turks, you pardon me for that, okay? Turkey is beautiful, but Spain is also beautiful. And Spain and Turkey have this amazing relation. There's a really interesting book, called La Sombra del Islam en la Conquista de América by a man called Tobo Ada. It's called The Shadow of Islam in the Conquest of America. Came out just a few years ago in Spanish. He's a great scholar. And it's really interesting to show how the Spanish conquerors, who were very ruthless in the Americas, were so concerned about the Turks because they knew that the Ottoman Turks would conquer them and take back Spain. Because of the way that events developed in the 16th century, that didn't happen. But they knew at that time this is a certainty. And his book is a very important book, The Shadow of Islam in the Conquest of America, La Sombra del Islam en la Conquista de América. Very good book, inshallah. So, اللهم وفقنا لما تحبه وترضى وجعلنا من عبيدك السعداء وأمتنا على كلمة الهدى علمنا ما ينفعنا ووفقنا للعمل بما علمتنا به واجعل ما نحن فيه خالصا مخلصا لوجهك الكريم يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعل تجمعنا هذا تجمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا بعده تفرقا معصوما لا شقيا منا ولا محروما. آمين آمين يا رب العالمين. We'll see you tomorrow inshallah. And now we get the great honor of Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. بإذن الله تعالى. He's going to speak in a few minutes.